Ian, thank you for taking the time to do this. Your new album's great. It really just sounds like a fun album made under not fun circumstances, but you hear the fun in the whole thing. When did you actually finish it?
I think the last tracks were done about end of February, March. I don't believe we ever thought that the record company would fall in love with it so much that they wanted to do a big promo on it. We thought it would probably be out a couple of months afterwards and just a little quiet release, But I think it turned out far better than any of us envisaged it could. Because recording remotely, we know it's possible now, the technology is there. But quite often, it can sound a bit sterile. It can sound a bit like, five guys in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Once we realized it didn't sound like that, once we realized it sounded like a band in a room, and it sounded fun, and the quality of the production was really good. We all got on board in a big way. We think of it as a party record, and for those people who like rock and roll, blues, stuff, I think it's a nice thing to listen to. We had no choice. If you're going to keep playing, the studio was the only place you could be, especially when you have a band that's all over the world. One guy's in the States, one in Portugal, one's in Switzerland, two in the UK, and you can't travel. What do? You can't go on stage. You can't write. You can't get together to make new music. The studio's the possibility, and you make old music. Go back and find some music that was important to you, or an artist that was important, or a time of your life that was important, and make a selection from those things that help switch you on, and God bless success. I thank whoever's up there every day for throwing it my way. But it is limiting because you end up just playing your own stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other people's great stuff out there that you really don't get a chance to have fun with. So this was the opportunity to do that. And I say, once the doubt about it being cohesive had gone, then we said, this is going to be great. And we did have fun doing it. We're lucky, we are blessed. We do have such good musicians in the band. You can throw anything at most of us, and we can come up with a solution to it. That's a great benefit to have. There is no weak link, because when there's a weak link, that's as far as you can push it.
Yeah.
So we do have that, that extra string to our bow, which again is very, very nice to have, because you can just make a left turn. You just say, okay, we're going to do this now. I've worked with lesser musicians when I'm guesting, and sometimes that immediacy of just changing direction of the music without a word being spoken.
Right.
You just, in an instant, everybody's gone the same direction. When you've got lesser lights, they just look totally confused and stop playing. Because, I didn't know you were going to do that. No, you weren't meant to know I was going to do that. You should have come with me.
I know what you mean there, yeah. And something that I'm curious about is whether this album was inspired at all by your experience with Run Devil Run.
Only after the event I thought about it, because it's something that Paul did 20 years ago, that stuff from his youth that was important to him, It was only after the event I thought, I've done this before, but not on one of my records, And again, I mean, the record with Paul was done very quickly. That was all done in like 5 days. But then again, we were in the studio together, so fixing things that weren't working took 2 minutes. Whereas when you're all those thousands of miles apart, something's wrong. It's going to take a day to sort it out with all the file transfer and stuff. So yeah, it's similar but different. Yeah.
Similar but different, but just like Run Devil Run, this is a fun cover-oriented album that revisits songs from one's youth. And you guys fortunately put up a making of video which clarified the song selection process. But one thing I wasn't sure of, how many songs you actually recorded for the album versus making the album. Were there leftovers or Japanese bonus tracks?
There is a Japanese bonus track. Yeah, of course, there has to be. You know, without that, the Japanese record industry wouldn't be there.
Yeah,
because just by the cheap import.
Yeah.
So we did a version of Junior Walker's Roadrunner, which I think should have been on the record. That would have been my choice, but democratic process, it got voted out for something else. So that's really nice as well. And I'm sure in the fullness of time, that will be released with everything else, you know. So, and we started a version of the band's Chest Fever track, and which is a very simple little track, you know. Well, it was until Don Airey got hold of it. And he decided to get incredibly musical with it. And for some reason, he put a 9/8 time signature piece in the middle of it. We sort of blew it out of the water. I mean, it took me 2 days to do the drum track. It was really complex. And I mean, it's just not working. It's not the tune anymore. You know, it's lost the point of the tune. So that never got finished. But that was it. You know, one bonus track, one consigned to the dustbin. You know.
Speaking of the Japanese market, as somebody who's been there a bunch of times, I know that the hard rock magazine of Japan is Burn, which is named after Deep Purple.
Yeah.
When exactly did you find that out? Was the band psyched, or was there immediate suspicion of, maybe we should have ownership in this?
No, it's just it's a nice compliment that one of the things you've done has been used as their totem, you know, their calling card, their signature. That's nice, you know. You can't copyright a word, can you?
I mean, you could trademark a word, but I understand what you're saying there.
Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting thing about Deep Purple, how the band means different things to different people in different territories. So, for example, in some countries, you guys were as big as Led Zeppelin. And then other countries, it's like, yeah, the guys with the 4 hits per se. So there's never been a question of like, how relevant is Deep Purple? That's an amazing thing that the band has remained popular for as many years as it has. But was there ever a period for you where you kind of worried like, if we don't have another hit, things are going to end? Or did you always have that power of positive belief?
No, I don't think we ever worried about having hits in the first place. You know, it was a time when pop bands made singles and rock bands made albums. So long as we kept coming up with albums that people seemed to like, we weren't worried about having a top 40 hit. You know, if they came along, it was like a bonus. No, the only time we got concerned was towards the end of Richie's tenure with the band, as he was losing interest, and the performances from the band were not great because you need everybody helping each other out. You know, they can't be a passenger. And we just saw the audiences getting smaller and less impressed, and that was worrying. And when Richie decided to leave, that was pretty traumatic, because who knows what you do then. And had we not been contracted to have to go to Japan, it might all have fallen to bits then. But we had to go to Japan with the wonderful Joe Satriani, and it proved that there is life after even somebody as great as Richie is. You know, he didn't want to be there, but it was just as much our band as it was his. And we were still having fun. We started to have fun again when Joe turned up and just became a 5th member of the band, pulling his weight.
Yeah.
And it became easy and fun again. So that was light at the end of the tunnel. And everybody knows, to try and recapture those halcyon days of, you know, the early 70s, that's never going to happen, you know. the world's moved on to a different place, and music moved to a different place, and we're different people. So, but it's all about having fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for yourself, and you can make some other people enjoy it with you. That's okay. That's a good end product.
And speaking of that fun and that end product, everybody thinks of you as the Deep Purple guy. Then a couple people will dig a little bit and like, oh, a couple of Whitesnake albums and the McCartney album we spoke about. And then you dig further and you go, George Harrison and Chad Smith, and there was some Bruce Dickinson stuff, and there was a William Shatner album. It's this kind of thing where most people would kind of kill, in my opinion, to have your credits, but you've always been very modest about the whole thing. And I'm impressed that you've been able to juggle so many projects at the same time while still being the Deep Purple guy per se. Nothing on your checklist, I would imagine. You've kind of accomplished everything you wanted to and more, right?
I don't think anybody can say that. I think I've accomplished more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
But I think there's always something you'd like to have a try at. Sometimes you don't even know what it is till it smacks you in the face. Oh, I wish I'd do that. But say once you end up just playing your own stuff, which is great, but every now and again to play somebody else's stuff, that's just refreshing. It was fun doing those tracks with Paul. Just different. And the Shatner thing was great. I mean, the most important thing that happened on the Shatner record, I got name checks all over the place when he was doing his late night promos for it. I had Ian Paice on the drums, and brilliant. Yeah. Thank you, Bill. Name checks are good.
Name checks are good indeed. So all that said, and keep in mind, I did not name Gary Moore and Velvet Underground within those credits. So it's really decades of influential artists, still that. But you are one of the two artists that can bring Bob Ezrin out of retirement over and over and over again. It's you and Alice Cooper per se. But did you know outright that Bob was going to be producing this new record?
Oh, yeah. Since we've been working with Bob since 2012, we've done 3 studio records with him. It's great fun working with Bob because he gets things done quickly and he keeps things on track musically. He's the first one to tell you if you're doing something wrong. And he doesn't just come and say, that's wrong. He tells you why it's wrong. And he tells you why it's wrong in a musical way. Now, you can disagree with him, and sometimes you do, but most times you don't. He'll come with a valid musical point, and you go, yeah, we could do that better. Or this bit is too long. And he makes statements that make sense to a musician. And of course, when you leave him to get on with his work in the control room, what you end up listening to sounds really great. I mean, there's nothing else you could ask from a producer. He has input at the beginning of the thing and he has the last word at the end, but it's usually a very good word.
Now, he's also known for co-writing material. Not saying he forces the co-write per se, but it's kind of this is great. Here's how we can make it even more excellent, and eventually getting a co-write per se.
Yeah.
Is that a welcome thing from Deep Purple? Because as far as I know, Deep Purple was never a band that went, we need Desmond Child for a hit song.
No, but working with Bob, his input is there from the very, very early part of the production process. So whatever his take is, it's worth it because, everything we do is a cooperative venture anyway.
Yeah.
No one guy writes a song. They come from jamming and the 5 of us stick our 2 cents in, so Bob stuck his 2 Canadian cents in. It's worth a little less.
Now, I have a couple of quick, stupid questions that I'm curious about, and then I'll let you free. And the first one is, being in a band of 2 Ians, how does that work? Is there ever confusion related to which Ian are you talking about? Or do you go by end initials? How does that work?
Well, we've had it worse. We used to have a road manager called Ian too. And we have a tour manager now called Ian. Luckily, his nickname is Spider. So he's not called Ian. So it's just down. It became Little Ian, Big E. Because Gillen's 6 foot and I'm not. So he's Big E and Little E. And that's how we got around it.
That's kind of like in Megadeth, where there was Dave Mustaine and Dave Ellefson, and I think they called Dave Ellefson Jr. per se, but now I know Little E and Big E. There you go. Next thing I want to know is I'm doing some research related to David Lee Roth, and I couldn't ever figure out, did Deep Purple and yourself ever have any run-ins with David Lee Roth over the years? Because I know Van Halen was very influenced by Deep Purple in the early days.
No, not really. I think we actually did one festival where we were, but it was after Van Halen. I think David had left them by then. I don't think I ever met the guy, you know, but he's not the sort of guy you'd forget.
Well said. And then my last question.
Mind you, having said that, I forgot meeting Phil Collins once.
Oh.
I mean, I said, "Nice to meet you, man." So we met last year in LA. I just forgot. So we may have done, you know. Alcohol's a terrible thing.
In moderation, it is not. And my last
I agree.
for you is, what should we be watching on television? Do you have any film or TV recommendations besides watching all the video content related to your new excellent album, Turning to Crime?
I've found that I'm a late discoverer of Netflix. There's so much good stuff there, but a lot of it is not English speaking. You know, some great stuff coming out of Germany and Italy and Spain. And if you can deal with the subtitles, if you don't have the language, it's brilliant. I mean, they just do different stuff. You know, we tend to do the same stuff, whether it's US or UK based. And they have a slant of it, which is from their culture. And that's fun to watch, you know. And you don't need this, you don't, you know, my ears are not the greatest. I'm one of those guys that are television flat out, you know. It's 60 years of belt and drums next to Marshalls, it doesn't do you any good. So with the subtitles, you can have a sensible volume, you still know what's going on. So that's what I watch a lot of recently.
So Squid Games was on that list of foreign shows, or any one or two you could recommend that in the last year?
Just the name alone makes me not want to watch it, and just all the hype about it makes me not want to know what it's about.
Wow.
I run away from stuff like that.
So what I'm learning here is that you have cool taste in TV because you don't go to what everyone else watches, but you're not going to share it to keep it cool.
Nah, that's right.
Exactly. Ian, thank you for your time. Thank you for the many years of great music, and looking forward to the next live show in New York, whenever that is, man.
Thank you. Very nice interview, man. I've enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Take care.
And you.
Paltrocast.